And the problem with Bitcoin and cryptos in general is they're sampling everywhere in the world all the time. And so if you fixate on it, it's going to give you anxiety. And the only thing you can do is buy or sell, right? And so if you buy and hold, that's good. And at any point in the history of technology, if you had sold, you made a mistake, right? With the one caveat, you have to buy the winner. You have to buy the category killer. You buy Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. And so the question is, how long do you got to watch them win before you decide they're the winner? I mean, I think 30 years is a bit late. If you got to wait for 30 years before you pick the winner, right, you probably won't get outsized returns. But you could have watched them win for 10 years and bought them and still made a lot of money. Like if you bought it in 2013, you were inspired and you took a lot more risk and there's a lot more question mark. But waiting until 2020, like what, how about 2021? I mean, really? Like, are you still gonna classify it? I mean, it's certainly more stable and more successful than Facebook was in 2012 or Google. If you look at the market caps and the stability of Facebook and Google and Amazon and even Apple, you can find that it was 98% skepticism on those stocks 10 years after they had established their business model. If you roll the clock back 1 year, now we have hindsight. If you had $1 million, or if you were sitting in a position where you could have invested $1 million a year ago, or 100,000, pick any amount, and maybe you could borrow 100,000 against a house a year ago, and you think about what you could have done with it. What are the mistakes? If you borrowed $100,000 and you bought gold, you lost 2% of your money. You would have 98,000 worth of gold. If you borrowed $100,000 a year ago and you bought long duration government debt, 10 and 30-year government debt, you would have lost 12% of your money. That was an awful idea. Pretty stupid, right? Why would you ever buy debt and loan the federal government money for 30 years for 1.2% interest for 30 years? Those are two mistakes. If you borrowed the money and you just held it in cash, you would have the money. And so that's that. But what if you'd done everything else, right? If you bought a house with the money, single family houses were up 24%, according to the headline in the Wall Street Journal last week. Okay, so if you bought a house 12 months ago, that was smart. You know, not a bad idea. Why you bought a scarce asset? If you bought Bitcoin, you're up 294%. You know, you could probably list a whole set of meme stocks that did even better, and probably some cryptos that did even better. They all have more risk, but you know, it's like take a flyer. If you did it, great. I'd like to invest in things that I can hold a decade. But generally, what's the one mistake? I mean, unless you were going to buy gold or long dated sovereign debt with the money that you borrowed, the one mistake would be not to have borrowed the money. That's the biggest mistake, because you almost couldn't lose money investing in anything. How do you lose money? You trade it, right? You basically buy GameStop, you short GameStop on margin, or you do some kind of short dated trade. And I've lost money on short trade. No one in the world is so smart they can guarantee your short-term trade is going to work. And any trade, no matter how intelligent it is, can be made to look scary if I compress the time frame enough. If I zoom in on your face with a 10,000 to 1 magnifying glass, I'll find a blemish. And if I track the most stable thing down to the 1 second gyration, I will find anxiety. You know, one point I made to people is, if you took $1 million and you bought a house, and then you went to everybody you could find in the world every minute of the day on Saturday night while you're drinking tequila, and you said, will you buy my house for me for more than I paid for it? You would probably find someone at some point that will say, no. You would probably find someone that'll say, I don't want your house. I'm not going to pay you anything for it. Or someone else will say, I'll give you half. And if you then said to yourself, oh my God, I lost half my money, I found someone that was willing to give me half, you would just give yourself a heart attack. If you keep over sampling, if you sample everybody all the time, you're going to create anxiety.